Good evening, I'm Zinkley Asamoah. It's been a busy day. Here are some of the stories we're following on Now Tonight.
I'm proud that today we had made one more family whole again.
Today is just a happy day for me and my family, so I'm gonna smile right now.
Finally free. WNBA star Brittney Griner is on a plane right now, heading home after 294 days in Russian captivity. U.S. officials agreeing to a prisoner exchange. Griner for a Russian arms dealer. Details on the deal, what comes next, and the American prisoner left behind. Then protecting same-sex marriage. The House passes a bill to keep interracial and same-sex marriage safe under federal protections. But some LGBTQ groups say that doesn't go far enough. We'll explain. Plus, no reservations. A Virginia restaurant cancels an event because of a conservative group's beliefs. But can they do that? That's in our Now Tonight original report. And in the spotlight, House committees don't just make policy. Apparently, they make films. Tonight, our conversation on Congress's new film on economic inequality. Representative Jim Himes joins us with more on this bipartisan mission to connect Americans. And we begin tonight with Brittney Griner. After a very long 294 days in Russian captivity, she returns home. The WNBA star is expected to land in San Antonio, Texas, within hours. A series of twists and turns led us to this moment, so let's walk through it. Griner was arrested in February for possession of hashish oil and detained for roughly 10 months. During that time, her trial was pushed back 4 times. She pled guilty in July and was sentenced to 9 years in Russian custody. A Russian judge rejected her appeal in October. Through it all, the Biden administration, celebrities, and Griner's wife, Sherelle, never lost the will to find a way to bring Brittney home. President Biden says her release is thanks to painstaking and intense negotiations. Earlier today, both the president and Brittney's wife celebrated the news at the White House.
She's on a plane. She's on her way home. After months of being unjustly detained in Russia, held under intolerable circumstances, Brittney will soon be back in the arms of her loved ones, and she should have been there all along. And
so today I'm just standing here overwhelmed with emotions, but the most important emotion that I have right now is just sincere gratitude for President Biden and his entire administration.
In exchange for Griner, the U.S. released noted Russian arms dealer Victor Bout, nicknamed the Merchant of Death. Bout was arrested in 2008 and sentenced to 25 years behind bars here in the U.S. NBC's Mike Memley has more from the White House. Mike?
Hi, Zinkley. A couple days ago, Sherelle Griner got a call from a White House official inviting her to come have breakfast with the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. She thought she was coming for an update on her wife Brittney's condition, her status in Russia. Instead, when she came to the White House this morning, she went to the Oval Office, and President Biden greeted her with some news. Her wife, Brittney, was safe and on her way home. That scene in the Oval Office we see in photos released by the administration today. President Biden greeting Sherelle. When they spoke on the phone with Brittney Griner, the president first greeted her with the news. Welcome home, the president said. Sherelle Griner also had the chance to go into the president's private dining room to speak with her wife one-on-one. This was the culmination of nearly 10 months of an ordeal for the Griner family that has been a top priority for the Biden administration to secure her release. But it wasn't easy. These decisions, as White House officials have stressed throughout the day, around the exchange here of Brittney Griner for Victor Bout, a notorious arms dealer known as the Merchant of Death, was a very difficult decision for the administration to make and for the president personally. He addressed this himself when he announced the deal this morning. Take a listen.
Make no mistake about it. This work is not easy. Negotiations are always difficult. There are never any guarantees. But it's my job as President of the United States to make the hard calls and protect American citizens everywhere in the world, anywhere in the world. And I'm proud that today we had made one more family whole again. So welcome home, Brittney.
a few months ago was a real turning point in this process when the White House announced they had made a substantial offer to the Russian side to try to secure not just Griner's release, but Paul Whelan, a businessman who has been wrongfully detained for an additional 2 years, even longer than Griner had. This was in exchange for what they hoped to be a 2-for-1 deal. White House officials saying that it was only in the last few weeks where it became clear that Russia was immovable. They considered Whelan's case to be a much different one, and it was either secure Griner's release in return for boot or none at all. So ultimately, that was the decision the White House made. But officials also stressing that President Biden remains committed to securing Whelan's release as well. And in fact, in the last few days, the White House has been in touch with Whelan's family to keep him informed. The hope, the expectation is that this diplomatic channel that helped get to a point where they were able to secure Griner's release is one that also will ultimately lead to Whelan's release as well. Zinkley?
Thanks, Mike, for that analysis. And with Griner on her way home, attention now turns to the other American detainees abroad, specifically Paul Whelan. He's been held in Russia for about 4 years. The former Marine was arrested on espionage charges, which both he and U.S. authorities have denied. Earlier today, Whelan spoke to CNN from a Russian penal colony. Here's part of what he said.
I would say that if a message could go to President Biden that, this is a precarious situation that needs to be resolved quickly. And I would hope that he and his administration would do everything they could to get me home, regardless of the price they might have to pay at this point.
We have a panel of experts tonight to break this all down. William Taylor, the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and vice president Russia and Europe at the U.S. Institute of Peace, and Danny Savalos, our NBC News legal analyst. Thank you both so much for being here. So, Ambassador, I want to start with you. Of all of the prisoners, why did Russia want Victor Bout back?
Zinkley, it's a very good question. The guy is probably a spy in all likelihood. He's got links to the spy agencies. We know all the bad things he's done in terms of selling arms around the world, but it's probably the spy link that made the Russians so interested in getting him home.
No, that's an important point, though. It's worth noting that both he and the U.S. have denied that. And, Danny, I want to bring you in because remind us, when it comes to international law, was Griner's arrest even founded in the first place?
Possession of hashish oil, to which she eventually pleaded guilty to. Now, whether that was the product of intimidation or thinking she just wanted to plead guilty to get a better deal and improve her chances of coming home, this was unusual in that it wasn't a kind of political charge. She was charged with straight-up drug possession, which is unlawful in Russia, and Russia has very harsh penalties for this particular kind of drug possession. Brittney Griner's eventual sentence was actually not even the maximum. It was close to it, but it wasn't quite the maximum sentence available under Russian law. So it's interesting. Many people talked about the 99% conviction rate in Russia.
Yeah.
Well, in the United States, the federal government has well over a 90% conviction rate whenever it brings cases against defendants, the vast majority of which either plead guilty, and those that go to trial, the vast majority of which are convicted. So Brittney Griner, unlike many of these political prisoner situations, was charged with a drug crime, not a distributing pamphlets or seditious speech or something like that.
Or espionage.
Right, exactly, or an espionage type crime. This is straight up drug possession, little doubt, there's plenty of doubt. There was no way she was a spy. It was just that she was somebody with drugs in the airport and got arrested the way you would pretty much at any airport.
But made big headlines and a big splash. And Ambassador, I wanted to bring you back in here because Paul Whelan is one of 65 Americans wrongfully detained abroad. His charges almost bigger than drug charges that we're seeing. What happens to prisoners like him?
Well, Zinkley, the U.S. government has made it very clear that every U.S. government goes after Americans to bring them home. We don't leave anyone there any longer than we have to. It's difficult, as you've indicated in your reporting, it's difficult. Hard decisions have to be made. If there are swaps, if so, what's the linkage on the swap? Are they equivalent? But there is a strong effort by every administration, including this one, but that includes Treasury, includes Justice, obviously includes the State Department and the National Security Council, and probably the CIA. There's a big interagency effort to bring these people home.
Absolutely. And notably, this is not just about the U.S. and Russia, right? Danny, can you talk to me about Saudi Arabia's role in all of this?
Saudi Arabia was originally a neutral third party, a site for the exchange of prisoners. But news is broken that Saudi Arabia and at least one other country are claiming responsibility for the negotiations, something the U.S. has denied. So not sure what's going on there. Another interesting thing that Ambassador Taylor mentioned, that the U.S. does go out and try to bring Americans home. But I would say, and I believe the ambassador would agree with me, that that's not the case if you are abroad and you are convicted of a crime, especially a crime that is a crime both in the U.S. and in that state where you're arrested. There are plenty of people who get arrested abroad. I mean, it is a common warning to kids going on spring break in college. If you're going to Mexico,
behave.
No guns, no marijuana. Those things are arguably more illegal in Mexico than they are here in the States. And if you get arrested, Ambassador Bill Taylor is not going to send the Marines to get you out of a Mexican prison. You're going to be stuck there. So there really is, I mean, there still is risk for Americans who travel abroad, anyone who travels abroad to another country, especially if they're planning to bring pharmaceuticals, prescription drugs, or something like marijuana.
And then briefly, Danny, I know previously you've talked about almost the double standard when it comes to the U.S. fighting for Griner, detained for essentially marijuana charges, and the way we prosecute people here for that.
I have. I mean, it's really interesting to me, and I wasn't the only one that noticed this, but I've had clients who've been sent to prison for a long time. Now, granted, that was for a lot of marijuana, but in this case, a small amount of marijuana is something that has only recently been decriminalized. At the beginning of my career, I had plenty of clients who were facing real jail time for possession of small amount of marijuana, and in many jurisdictions, it's only recently been decriminalized.
And Ambassador, I want to end with you here. Big picture, what implications might this have for Russia's invasion of Ukraine? Of course, Russia is the focal point here. We were negotiating with them.
We were negotiating with them on this issue, and it's been very clear, Clay, that we're not going to talk to the Russians about the Ukraine issue. That we're not negotiating with the Russians on Ukraine. Only the Ukrainians can do that. Only the Ukrainians will decide when to negotiate and what to negotiate with the Russians. We'll clearly support the Ukrainians as they do this, but this indicates that it's possible to talk to the Russians about some things that we care about. But it's also a very clear indication that it's a separate, very separate negotiation that is up to the Ukrainians to decide when to negotiate with the Russians over that conflict.
A lot of angles to cover here. Ambassador Bill Taylor and NBC's Danny Savalos, thank you both for helping us cover this important story. And here, back in the Big Apple, hundreds of employees at the New York Times are now 18 hours into a 24-hour strike. It's the media company's first major staff walkout in 40 years. Newsroom employees say they're frustrated with the company over contract negotiations, which have dragged on since March of 2021. And the dispute playing out on Twitter. One reporter asking her nearly 700,000 Twitter followers to, quote, not engage in any New York Times platforms, adding viewers should read local news, listen to public radio, break your Wordle streak. And it wasn't just individual reporters. The Times Union tweeted an open letter to readers this morning saying they do not make this decision lightly, claiming the New York Times management has refused to bargain in good faith or engage in marathon bargaining to avoid work stoppage. Both the New York Times and CEO Meredith Levine called the strike disappointing. The company claims that progress has been made at the bargaining table and that it offered new proposals this week. The New York Times went on to say that the union's proposals were too expensive. NBC's Dasha Burns has more. Hey, Dasha.
This strike is happening with the backdrop of the pandemic, of inflation, and of a sort of renaissance of the labor and union movement. We've seen this not only with the New York Times, but with Starbucks, with Kellogg's, across so many industries where workers are looking to sit at the table and have their voices heard by the leadership of the companies or organizations that they are working for. And in this case, at the heart of these negotiations, at the heart of this fight, wages and remote work, of course, impacted by the pandemic and by inflation, as so many of us have seen our lives change. What these union members, what the union is asking for is a wage increase that sort of keeps up with the times, with the rising costs that we're seeing, and flexibility in their working lives, not to have a sort of a stringent return to work policy, but allow them to have some flexibility. Now, in terms of how far apart these folks are right now, the union members and the company in negotiations, I want you to hear from a senior staff editor. Listen.
The deal to be made if management is willing to negotiate in good faith. They have been slow walking this thing for a long time. The bargaining committee has been negotiating for 20 months over this, and management has been dragging its heels. We want a deal.
Another one of the folks we heard from today put out the message of, look, if we are working at an institution like the New York Times, we shouldn't be having to work a second job in order to make ends meet. The focus really being on what the union members here view as fairness, as equity. They said, listen, we shared in the struggle as the paper faced some of those challenges during the pandemic, and now we want to share in the success. To the point of what happened inside of the building today, how the actual process of putting out a paper worked. We heard from management from the New York Times saying that they had a solid plan in place in order to keep producing content. They were relying on international journalists, on journalists that weren't in the union. The union, though, also said that management asked them to work extra hours in order to get some stories ready to go for print and publication. Today, the union also said that those who were striking were not paid for the duration of the strike, clearly something that union members were frustrated with. And at the end of the day, it seems like there is still quite a big gap to close between those two sides. Back to you.
And in Washington, a historic bill to protect same-sex marriage is now on its way to the president's desk. This morning, the House passed the Respect for Marriage Act, which also protects interracial marriage rights. President Biden saying in a statement, quote, Congress has restored a measure of security to millions of marriages and families. Adding, together, we showed that it's possible for Democrats and Republicans to come together to safeguard our most fundamental rights. But some advocates argue it's not enough. NBC Dasha Burns brings us another report.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
A landmark bill is headed to the president's desk. Congress passing the Respect for Marriage Act today with bipartisan support. The bill codifies same-sex and interracial marriage with legal protections for married couples in every state.
This specific piece of legislation is sort of a backup plan if the Supreme Court rolls back marriage equality.
And yet it comes with some criticism from both Republicans.
This is yet another step toward the Democrats' goal of dismantling the traditional family.
And from some members of the LGBTQ community, the very people it's meant to support.
I'm very happy that we're doing it, yet we're doing it in reaction to a Supreme Court justice who has said that they want to roll back our rights.
Especially those living in more conservative states.
As a member of the community in the state of Tennessee, I am deeply worried about the ability for all of our members of our community to thrive.
Phil Cabucci met his partner of 7 years at a Pride event in Nashville, Tennessee, a state that has seen 31 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced this year alone, more than any other state in the U.S.
We still don't feel like we have full equity in this country.
Cabucci says that even though same-sex marriage currently remains the law of the land under the Supreme Court's ruling in Obergefell versus Hodges, he feels like his basic rights are still at risk.
There has been an attempt to dismantle marriage equality in the state of Tennessee every single year in our state legislature. I want to be able to celebrate the incredible movement that we have made, but the reality is that there's still so much more work that needs to be done.
According to the Human Rights Campaign, over half of U.S. states can still deny LGBTQ Americans basic freedoms like the right to rent a home or the ability to receive public goods and services.
We need to change that.
The bipartisan efforts behind the Respect for Marriage Act might be a beacon of hope for future bills.
This is an important step towards us getting a little bit freer and closer to equality, because at the end of the day, this isn't just about a marriage ceremony.
This year, public support for legal same-sex marriage hit a new high of 71% in Gallup tracking polls, up from just 27% in 1996 when Gallup first began polling the issue.
I'm hopeful by this moment, but I'm also very clear that the fight has not ended. A new chapter has just begun.
And coming up, new developments in the case of a FedEx driver who allegedly killed a little girl in Texas. Her family's emotional reaction is ahead. And later, we'll have Congressman Jim Himes to talk about a bipartisan effort to tackle economic inequality. It's actually not the first time lawmakers have confronted this cause. In 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson declared war in America for the same reason. Take a look.
This budget and this year's legislative program are designed to help each and every American citizen fulfill his basic hopes. Our task is to help replace their despair with opportunity. And this administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America.
Welcome back. I'm Zinklea Samoa. We have new developments in the tragic death of a 7-year-old girl in Texas. The FedEx driver charged in her kidnapping and killing was delivering her Christmas present. That's according to Athena Strand's mom, who was on the verge of tears in a news conference earlier today.
Athena was robbed of the opportunity to grow up to be anything she wanted to be. And this present, ordered out of innocence and love, is one she will never receive. I was supposed to bring Athena back home to Oklahoma after Christmas break. Now instead, Athena will be cremated. And she will come home in an urn because I'm not anywhere close to being ready to let my baby go.
The young girl vanished last week from her home about 40 miles northwest of Fort Worth. After a 200-person search, her body was found 2 days later. The police say the FedEx driver dropped a package around the time of her disappearance. That driver eventually confessed to abducting and murdering the young girl. Now prosecutors say they're seeking the death penalty as they learn about the events that led up to the girl's death. NBC's Priscilla Thompson has more.
NBC News has obtained a copy of the arrest warrant for 31-year-old Tanner Horner. He is the FedEx driver who police say confessed to killing 7-year-old Athena Strand. And in that arrest warrant, investigators say that Horner told them that he was delivering a package to the home when he accidentally hit the 7-year-old with his van. And at that point, he decided to take her in his van. He said that she was not seriously injured, but he feared that she might tell her dad what had happened and about the accident. And so in this arrest warrant, Horner says that he panicked, he took the child, and he ultimately killed her. And investigators were able to track his truck after they received a tip about this FedEx driver that had delivered something to the home earlier. They found Horner and said that he confessed to this crime, and he has now been arrested and charged with capital murder and kidnapping. Those charges could mean that he could face the death penalty here in Texas. And at the same time as we are learning about these horrific new details of why this might have happened, we're also hearing from the mother of 7-year-old Athena Strand. She is saying that her daughter was someone who was pure and innocent and just so happy and sweet. And this is going to be an incredibly difficult time for them as they prepare to say their final goodbye to their daughter. She said that they still have a ton of Christmas gifts under the Christmas tree wrapped that were intended for Athena. And we now know what was in that FedEx box, the delivery that was being made. Her mom saying that it was a Barbie doll set that was intended to be another one of 7-year-old Athena's Christmas gifts. Back to you.
Sobering report. Priscilla Thompson, thank you so much. We'll keep that family in our prayers. And after the break, some other big headlines we're keeping an eye on, including the mystery surrounding attacks on substations in North Carolina and now some other states. And we'll look at rising flu cases and the strain it's putting on our healthcare systems. Dr. Vin Gupta will show us how to keep you and your family healthy. It's It's time now for some of the headlines we're watching tonight. Peru's president has been impeached for trying to dissolve Congress. Pedro Castillo was then arrested for the alleged crime of rebellion. Vice President Dina Boluarte says she's replacing him as the country's first female leader. She becomes Peru's 6th president in under 5 years. Idaho police are asking for help finding a car seen near the house where 4 students were killed. They're looking for a white Hyundai Elantra and believe the person or people inside it could have critical information about the case. As of now, investigators have yet to find a weapon and no suspects have been named. Celine Dion reveals she has a rare medical condition that forced her to postpone tour dates. The singer fought back tears in an emotional Instagram video when she shared she had stiff person syndrome. She says the disorder has given her spasms, which affected her ability to sing and walk. She says it's been a challenge to get better, but hopes to see her fans soon. And Trevor Noah is saying goodbye tonight in his final episode of The Daily Show. The late-night comedian succeeded Jon Stewart more than 7 years ago, a role he was surprised by, coming from humble beginnings.
This is surreal for me. I'm not going to lie. Growing up in the dusty streets of South Africa, I never dreamed that I would one day have, well, 2 things really. An indoor toilet and a job as host of The Daily Show. And
Noah has said when his tenure ends, he wants to travel the world, and I'm sure he'll keep us all laughing wherever he is. And George Newall, the co-creator of Schoolhouse Rock, has died. His wife says he passed away on November 30th from a cardiopulmonary arrest. His cartoons taught a generation of kids about math, science, civics, and grammar. He was 88 years old. Power and American infrastructure may be at risk. The FBI is now investigating energy facilities being targeted in at least 4 different states. Last night, an unidentified person fired shots near a power station in South Carolina. No one was injured and no equipment was damaged. Power companies in Washington state and Oregon reporting physical attacks using arson, firearms, and metal chains. And in North Carolina, officials are still looking for those responsible for attacks at 2 different substations. That happened in Moore County, just outside of Fayetteville. Power is now completely restored to all 45,000 customers affected. Many of those residents have been without power since Saturday when the attacks happened, which even caused schools to close. The sheriff described gunfire at the 2 substations as intentional vandalism. And now officials are offering a $75,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest. NBC's Guad Venengas has more.
Authorities in Moore County say that all customers now have their power restored, which is very good news, as more attention is now focused on incidents like the one that took place here. We now know that there were at least 5 different attacks in the Pacific Northwest. Reports that in Washington and Oregon, different substations were either attacked or were victims of criminal vandalism, as the power companies there said. Now, we don't have any more details as to what happened after those attacks took place, but it's important now that authorities are looking into different incidents around the country. There's no indication that these incidents are connected to what's happened here. We also now know that earlier in November, there was a different attack on a substation here in North Carolina that left more than 10,000 customers without power. Now, the energy company related to that incident did say that they were able to restore the power in only a few hours. That was a few weeks ago in November. There was also a reminder by that energy company for the people involved in these attacks, saying that they need to keep in mind that those that attack energy infrastructure could be facing state and federal prison time. Now, the authorities here in Moore County are offering a $75,000 reward for any information that could lead to an arrest and conviction of those responsible for what happened here. Back to you.
Thank you, Guad, for that report. And now to Virginia, where a restaurant, Metzger Bar and Butchery, canceled a reservation for a private event. The event was hosted by the Family Foundation, a conservative Christian group. So why was it canceled? According to the restaurant's Instagram account, the foundation is a, quote, political organization that seeks to deprive women and LGBTQ plus persons of their basic rights. The restaurant went on to say this made their employees feel unsafe. The Family Foundation says that they have been, quote, canceled, citing the 50s and 60s when people were denied food service because of race. This all comes as the Supreme Court is hearing the case Lori Smith, a Colorado web designer, refusing to create wedding sites for same-sex couples, citing her religious beliefs. NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos breaks down the difference between the 2 encounters.
A Virginia restaurant recently refused service to a Christian group that the restaurant says promotes anti-LGBT values. This is ultimately a controversy about semantics.
Surprised to find out that a restaurant wouldn't serve our organization.
Leads to debate over cancel culture. To discriminate against not only gay couples.
A free speech argument at the Supreme Court today.
The restaurant will say that they refuse service because this is a group that advocates and donates to causes that are anti-LGBT. So the argument goes they have a strong reason to protect their own employees. The Christian group will phrase it in a much simpler way.
And their actions be so intolerant and bigoted towards another group of people.
They'll say this is religious discrimination, plain and simple. Now, there's currently a separate case pending before the United States Supreme Court.
Colorado is trying to force me to promote ideas inconsistent with my faith and the core of who I am.
In which a web designer refused service to a same-sex couple. But the Supreme Court case involves different facts. There, the web designer admittedly is discriminating against a same-sex couple because they are a same-sex couple. In the restaurant case, it's not entirely clear why the restaurant targeted the group. Was it because they are Christian, or was it because of their political advocacy? Generally speaking, a restaurant, or really any business, can refuse service for any reason, even if it's a bad reason. The only narrow exception to this rule is where it's unlawful discrimination. That historically has been discrimination based on race, religion, national origin, and more recently, sexual orientation. If it's true that the restaurant discriminated against this Christian group for reasons that are not related to its Christianity, then the restaurant is probably legally in the clear. The key is the actual communication between the two parties. What exactly was said by the restaurant to the group when they canceled this event last minute? The challenge with unlawful discrimination has always been that a discriminator can do so for one reason and then publicly say it's for another lawful, acceptable reason. Discrimination is almost always hidden. It's not often that a person comes out and admits, yes, I discriminated for some unlawful reason. Far more often, discrimination is proved by circumstantial evidence.
Our thanks to Danny Savalos for that analysis. Now, get your tissues because it's time to talk about illness and sickness. Whether you've had it yourself or know someone who did, it's already been a rough and record-breaking flu season. This year, the flu has killed thousands, including 14 children. And according to the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, the peak is yet to come.
We have not yet seen a reprieve. Cases and hospitalizations are continuing to go up.
Last week, the CDC reported the most positive weekly flu cases on record since 1997, with over 32,000 positive tests. As the flu, RSV, and COVID cases spread rapidly, we're also seeing shortages of crucial medications. According to the FDA, there are shortages of amoxicillin, which is often used to treat chest infections, and albuterol, used for inhalers. Some pharmacies add it's also been a real struggle to keep meds like Tamiflu, Tylenol, and Motrin on the shelves, too. But the FDA has not announced any supply issues for those drugs just yet. Joining us now is NBC News medical contributor Dr. Vin Gupta to talk about this. Dr. Gupta, thanks for being here. So let's jump in here because according to the CDC, flu season typically peaks in December through February. Big yikes, because we're there right now. So what does that mean for us heading into the holidays?
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me. What we're expecting, what we're seeing in hospitals here in the West Coast across the country is a rising rate of flu A cases. So a lot of flu ends up being something you can deal with at home. However, we are seeing more and more adults especially end up in the hospital, in some cases the ICU, but more hospitalizations, non-ICU related across the country. Hospitalizations from flu A, there's two types of flu typically, flu A, flu B. From flu A are at the highest level in a decade plus. So we expect that this is going to increase probably with a peak sometime in the middle of January.
I mean, this is pretty serious, and maybe we've been desensitized because we've been living through a pandemic. But do you think people should be considering masking indoors again? What precautions should we be taking right now?
You know, if we take the politics and the pandemic fatigue out of this, absolutely. I have been doing indoor masking in grocery stores. If I've been on a plane, I haven't stopped, frankly. My risk tolerance is a bit different from others. I also have high-risk individuals that I live with, the young baby. So I think it will always go down to what is your individual situation and your individual family's risk tolerance. Having said that, at a population level, if hospitals are going to get strained, or if they're already strained, that community should be masking.
And it's worth pointing out, as we talked about earlier, right, we're seeing a lot of shortages, some confirmed by the FDA, some we're hearing from pharmacists and pharmacies. And usually when you're sick, you can rely on over-the-counter medications to ease some of those symptoms you talked about earlier, Dr. Gupta. So what do you recommend people do if their local pharmacies are out of the medications they need?
It's a big problem. And, you know, something simple like NyQuil has been really difficult to find here in the Pacific Northwest. So I empathize with that. Having said that, when it comes to things like amoxicillin, I know a lot of parents that are watching right now are concerned because that's something that's critical to, say, treat strep throat, common amongst kiddos. There are alternatives. So this is where a conversation with your medical provider is vital. If amoxicillin is not available, there are second-line alternatives. If Tamiflu is not available on short notice, there are online pharmacies that can deliver within 24 to 48 hours. That window of therapy for Tamiflu extends out to 5 days. So it's not ideal. Luckily, the Tamiflu shortage is in just a few zip codes across the country, so that's critical to acknowledge. But this is something where supply needs to become more prevalent, especially given what we're expecting in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And when it comes to over-the-counters, there is a range of alternatives to something that's commonly known like NyQuil. So I think that's where we have to look at substitutions, of which many exist.
And I think a big question a lot of people have when they feel the sniffles coming on or they're feeling a little hot or having trouble sleeping is, at what point should someone consider going to the hospital if they're having RSV symptoms or other symptoms?
So real quick, RSV symptoms, typically in those less than 2 or over 65, you should experience, in addition to the usual sore throat, runny nose, high-pitched wheezing. You're actually wheezing when you're taking a breath in. And when you're exhaling that, you're going to experience a wheeze. And usually, unlike flu, where you have high fevers, total body aches, so a slightly different clinical presentation. In either case, seek your medical provider's advice if you are medically higher risk. So if you have any upper respiratory symptoms, if you have a high fever and you're medically higher risk because of medications or because of age, talk to your medical provider, because in certain circumstances, these symptoms could represent flu COVID, and we have good treatments that are most effective when given early. So really important to talk to your medical provider if you're higher risk.
Absolutely. Prevention and early treatment, key. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. And coming up, the bipartisan effort to take on poverty in America and the documentary project highlighting efforts in Congress. All right, guess who's moving from in front of the camera to behind the scenes? Congress. That's right. Next week, Congress is releasing its first ever documentary. It's produced by the Select Committee on Economic Disparity and Fairness and Growth. The title is Grit and Grace. Joining me now is Eric Harris. He is a co-creator and senior producer of Grit and Grace, The Fight for the American Dream. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. So I got to watch this film, and in watching it, it's not something I'd expect from Congress. There are a lot of intimate vignettes on American life, the American experience, disparities. So why make a documentary when they could just put out a report like they usually do?
Thanks for having me, Clay. You know, everyone is used to those usual congressional reports, which are very long and completely weighed down with statistics and obscure stats that, quite frankly, people really don't understand outside the Beltway. So we wanted to do something different on this committee. We wanted to make something that was an artifact of this committee, but something that truly built connection among Americans in this polarized time. We know that millennials are going to watch documentaries in record numbers today, and we meet people where they're at here on this committee. It's what we've done since day one, when we flew across the country for our field hearings in places like Lorain, Ohio, places like San Francisco, California, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because we wanted to do things differently on this committee. We wanted to go where Americans were, hear directly from them. And this project is a reflection of that strategy and our efforts to uplift the voices of Americans that are all too often drowned out.
Yeah, meet people where they're at. And I know since the 1990s, we've seen a widening of the income inequality gap in the U.S. What is driving that, and how do we fix it? Because I know that's at the core of this piece.
There are so many different factors that are contributing to economic disparity today. Issues like a lack of affordable childcare, family care, disability care, a lack of options when it comes to being in a community that's been marginalized and historically forgotten, with lack of infrastructure and connections to get you into the 21st century economy. So there really isn't just one thing that contributes to economic disparity. And I think that's what this documentary does. It takes a holistic look at a plethora of different issues that Americans are facing right now, which have a significant impact on their economic well-being and mobility.
And really, you take a look at those issues through the stories of individuals, 3 very different Americans, a Black man navigating poverty and obesity, a Latinx woman managing small business, a white family living in rural America. So how exactly did you choose and find these subjects?
It's a great question. We interviewed almost 150 different families for this project, and with the help of the incredible NGOs and 501c3s and partner groups that have been with us all along the way during the tenure of our committee, they introduced us to individuals who have been faced with crippling challenges and yet somehow we're able to overcome, just like every American. And I think you'll see that theme in our film, and a theme that a lot of Americans can identify with, the concept of being able to pivot, being presented with an obstacle that feels insurmountable, but truly being able to get over it through a little bit of help from your community and the grit that you need to be able to face any challenge.
And viewers should know that Sex and the City star Sarah Jessica Parker is actually the narrator, which is pretty cool. And part of the reason why is because she's experienced economic hardship, specifically as a child. And she actually told the Washington Post in a quote, "In this era of deep division, the need for empathy among Americans could not be more important. I see this film as a vehicle for the kind of compassion and mutual understanding that's missing amid this polarized time." And I know we hear from politicians at the start of the film. We even hear from AOC. Was the goal, though, to leave politics out of the film? Because the emphasis seemed to be on the individual stories. What was the ultimate goal, and what do you hope people take away?
Well, unlike every other thing that Congress makes nowadays, this is the one product that we can guarantee you is devoid of partisanship and politics. This is really just about people. And we think that putting stories that are people first is an excellent way to break through what many people believe is a really hostile political environment nowadays. We hope that when people see this film, they will be consumed with this feeling of empathy, that they can now better know their Americans, their neighbors and their fellow Americans, but also feel just a little less alone, that the problems that they're encountering, the issues that they face, that they do so with the rest of the country behind them. With such a polarized climate that we're in right now, we really do believe that a content like this, content that puts people first and puts politics behind us, is what's going to help create real, genuine connection amongst Americans during this time.
Well, stories do have a unique way of bringing people together and bringing everyone to the table. So, Eric Harris, thank you so much. And the documentary Grit and Grace, The Fight for the American Dream will premiere December 13th at the National Archives. And a new investigation by ProPublica and NBC News finds Black families are disproportionately impacted by the child welfare system. In Arizona, the racial gap is pretty clear. A Black child is twice as likely to go through a welfare investigation compared to a white child. Here's NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk with their stories.
Phoenix, Arizona. When single mom Nida Richards moved her family here in 2015, it felt like a fresh start.
If I would have known what I know now, I would have never came here.
After she gave birth to her youngest daughter, hospital staff decided to drug test her. Richard says she didn't use drugs, but her daughter's test came back positive for amphetamine.
I just kind of lost it at that time. I kind of knew the end results of it.
A caseworker with the state's Department of Child Safety came to investigate.
That was stressful. That was beyond stressful. That was degrading.
Case records Richards provided to NBC News and ProPublica show it was found to be a false positive. Just months later, Richards was investigated again when she brought the same daughter to the hospital after she fell off the couch.
I feel like Target.
Why?
The color of my skin.
Double, double. Nationwide, Black children are more likely than white children to experience a child welfare investigation and enter foster care. But Maricopa County, which includes Phoenix, stands out among the nation's largest counties with one of the highest rates of investigation for Black families, according to federal data analyzed by ProPublica and NBC News. Between 2015 and 2019, more than 1 in 3 Black children in the county experienced a DCS investigation. That's nearly 3 times the rate of white children.
Our community is being stripped of his children.
Former DCS caseworker Matthew Stewart grew up fighting for civil rights alongside his pastor father. He left the department after 10 years, disenchanted.
I'm at an agency who I don't believe was treating black families with justice. I was ashamed, to be honest.
Mike Faust is the director of the Department of Child Safety.
Do you think that bias is behind it?
It raises a lot of questions. I think we must always consider bias in our decision making, but there's a lot of other factors other than just bias that weigh in. If it was solely bias, then doing more training on bias would fix racial disparity.
According to DCS, since 2016, the number of children of all races in foster care has dropped by 30%, in part because the agency has reduced how many families are investigated in the first place. But the most recent data shows statewide the disparity between white and black families investigated by DCS has actually grown. Faust acknowledges there's still work to be done.
We haven't gotten to this point across the country on racial disparity in foster care or any youth-serving system overnight. This has happened over decades, and so it takes a long period of time to engage in a very different way.
Stewart, the former caseworker, now runs a nonprofit dedicated to helping black families impacted by the system. He meets with Faust every month.
I'm hopeful that will make a change, but it really will take that strong message across the state to say this is how we will treat families.
In Nida Richards' cases, both investigations were closed, finding no evidence of abuse or neglect. But the damage, according to Richards, was already done.
I've worked hard my whole life, and to allow the system to come and tell me my best ain't good enough. I protected, I provided, I've housed, and I've fed all my kids by myself.
Instead of suspicion, she says, what she needed was support. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News, Phoenix.
Important reporting, Stephanie Gosk. Thank you. And up next, the latest installment of Inspiring America. NBC's Lester Holt will introduce you to a deaf therapy dog named Cole and how he's working to cheer up students and veterans. Before we go. And now we have a heartwarming story about a special therapy dog helping veterans and students across the country. Lester Holt has more.
Cole has a gift and loves to share it. Cole is a therapy dog who happens to be deaf.
A disability is not an inability.
A pit bull mix, Cole was born without the ability to hear. But that hasn't stopped him from making an impact with veterans and students.
And we've been able to go around to dozens and dozens of schools and to present Cole's life story about discrimination because of his breed, about the fact that he was unadoptable because he was born deaf.
Cole's owner, Chris Hanna, teaches at one of those schools in New Jersey.
How do the students react when they meet Cole for the first time?
It's fun to watch barriers just come down.
Right.
They become themselves, they become who they are, and any inhibitions or any kind of emotions that they were feeling instantly change.
Cole was just named the 2022 American Humane Hero Therapy Dog. Hannah acknowledges the challenges with this kind of breed and the public perception, but says this is one more thing Cole is teaching: tolerance.
Just because there's something a little bit different about you, that's what makes you unique. That's what makes you special. And looking through the lens of Cole's eyes, kids are really grasping onto that concept.
Nothing like some puppy love to end our night. Thank you, Lester Holt, for that report. And before we go, we have a few more feel-good stories for your day. Here are your 60 seconds of joy. Meet Baby Kahlo, the newest addition at the Dallas Zoo. The hippo calf made her public debut this week, putting on an adorable show as she splashed into her new pool. The zoo says her name, Kahlo, is a tribute to a conservation patrol dog in Zambia. 13 strangers went viral when documenting an unusual journey on TikTok. The group rented a van together and drove 10 hours from Orlando to Knoxville after their flight got canceled. Alana's story filmed along the way, introducing the cast of characters to her followers.
We are now in Georgia, and so I'm going to let everybody give their updates. I'm tired.
I'm ready to go. Another
5 hours.
I just like snacks.
Making lemonade out of lemons, the unlikely group made it safely to their destination and now have a group chat to stay in touch. And have you ever dreamt of conducting an orchestra? Well, one lucky guy got that chance and did not waste it. New York teacher Tim Schultz landed the gig by winning a raffle. He gave an unforgettable performance as the Chelsea Symphony's guest conductor. Thankfully, the musicians already knew the songs. Well, that's pretty cool. And that does it for this hour. Thanks for ending your day right. I'm Zinc Asamoah for NBC News Now. Tonight, the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.